born when it brings this collapse. As beautifully manifested in Istvan Szabo's film Mephisto, where the talented and upcoming actor strikes a deal with the devil and at the end was reduced to a plaything of the Nazi forces. This may raise a question about fascism and its nature. Let me take help of historians and some other social scientists who have brought to us the nature of fascism. I try to give us a sense of the writings on fascism over the last, say, almost half a century or more, from the 60s onwards. So, and I categorize it into four generations of writers on fascism, the nature of fascism. First generation came up and they talked about, and you are all familiar with those writings, talked about the nature of Nazi party, Hitler's rise, the party propaganda and all these things. So the first generation of writers generally laid foundations of the basic premises of studying fascism and Nazism. And their major contribution was to bring to us the larger structure of the Nazi party and its propaganda machine. You're familiar with Franz Neumann's very famous book, Behemoth, The Structure and Practice of National Socialism, which analyzed the chaotic and polyarchaic nature of Nazi regime. The main thrust of their writings, this generation, 60s generation, was institutions and fascist state, including the role of the military, police, and bureaucratic apparatus. The second generation of historians brought a comparative understanding of fascism, and with the works of Renzo De Felice and Ernest Nolte, the issue of fascism also became an issue of debate between whether fascists were actually reacting to the communist and socialist upcoming. So they were facing the challenge. This is what Nolte's thesis, very controversial thesis, but it also brought a huge debate in, among the historians, and this still continues. Whether and this actually comes back today in the European context, where they're legitimizing the fascist forces, AFD and others, by saying the socialists, and now the socialists and communists have been replaced by migrants, and those who are supporting migrants, green, to what Trump calls as woke, and all these things are seen as, and some forces which are challenging them are primarily taking the same cue as the fascist Nazis took in the 1930s. And there was now a debate between what came to be called an international, the third generation is very critical for us to understand. The third generation of historians generally came in the 1980s and 90s, and primarily the two particular works that I quote, many of you may have heard about it. One is Daniel Goldhagen's very famous work of Hitler's Willing Executioners. Now the work, actually the historians now looked at how ordinary people become not victims, they become they become part of the entire machine. And they, in a very ordinary common man, became mass murderer. How did it happen? Goldhagen talks about how this is the banality of the entire exercise which was looked at. And if you take a cue from, I'll come back to that, Hannah Arendt's famous work. You people are all actually got born with that word, banality of evil, the trial of Eichmann. So now these historians also talked about how ordinary people became part of the same machine, and they killed, they executed, and the very famous work, the movie Boy with Striped Pajama, is a beautiful explication of that theme. The second work was Christian Browning's work, where he talks about the military unit. And now this is increasingly become very relevant to us, where common man, irrespective of media, is becoming complicit in many things. The fourth generation, and this is the latest writers, and two of them very prominently I will place before you, is one is Annie Applebaum, and second is Timothy Snyder. Two of the frontline scholars who want to say everyone about totalitarianism, fascism, and Applebaum, if you read she writes on Atlantic and read the profile and the kind of, she runs also a kleptocracy meter. So every day it talks about how much the Trump and the regime is taking away from the people. So anyway, now these scholars brought fascism and Nazism from a European context to a larger context where totalitarianism and fascism is working together. and there are certain common features they all talk about. And the common features are, we all know, but I'll focus on